My name's Clare Pettinger, and my main job is working at the university. I'm a lecturer at the University of Plymouth. I do various other roles, community roles, and I'm really passionate about food and nutrition. Really, is my topic area, and I've been involved in quite a lot of community projects in Plymouth and in the kind of wider area. So that's me.
Brilliant. So tell me about the challenge that you've signed up to.
Oh well, I'm doing the North Devon Marathon on the 27th of June this year, 2021. And it's the first time I've ever done a marathon. And I'm excited and petrified about this new challenge. So yeah, I mean, I am more excited than I am petrified. I think, yeah, it's the biggest challenge probably that I've ever done physically. So yeah, exciting, I think.
Brilliant. So could you just tell me a little bit about how you got into running in the first place?
Yeah, so I mean, I've always been quite a physical person. As a child, I used to swim competitively, and that. I think that was both a strength and a weakness of the path I then took because I swam pretty much every day from the age of about 10 to about 14. So I've always been quite fit from quite a young age, but I when I gave up swimming, probably when I was about 14, I put on a lot of weight, and I was quite overweight and got quite a lot of not very nice bullying and that sort of thing. So it kind of affected my mental health at the time. And when I got through that phase, I kind of felt I needed something physical, and running just was the easiest thing. It seemed like the easiest and cheapest thing to do, really. At the time, it was actually quite hard because I was quite overweight, so I did have a few issues to begin with, but I just kind of ran through them, I think, and I've kind of run ever since, really, probably since about 16, 17, on and off. I go through phases of running a lot and not running very much, but yeah, so that's my kind of history of how I got into it.
Oh, amazing. So it's really like your kind of therapy, really, and it's just become part of your life by the sounds of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And therapy, it is. It's meditation, it's therapy, it's anger, it gets everything out for me, and it's been a bit of a savior for me, really. But mental well-being massively, especially recently, it's been such a kind of sanity for me, being able to just go out and rain or shine and run, to kind of escape and just get things sorted in my head, really.
Do you prefer running cross country or road running? What's your kind of
I
preference?
do a bit of both. I mean, I live kind of out in the country. I live quite rurally, so most of my running is kind of lanes. I do have some nice kind of off-road green lanes that I find, and at weekends I quite often go up to the moor with a friend. So a bit of both, but I think predominantly road running I'm doing at the moment. Although this marathon is going to be quite a lot of off-road, so I think it's going to be, I'm just trying to get the practice in with that off-road because it's quite a different skill, really. And what's good about where I live is it's really hilly, so there's no escape from having to run up and down hills, which is good practice again for the marathon because it's quite a hilly coastal path marathon that I'm doing. So it's up round Woolacombe, North Devon, and a lot of it is going to be off road on farmers' land and round the coast. I'm not quite sure how hilly it is, but I expect it will probably be quite hilly. So
I've
yeah.
done a lot of walking around that area. It is pretty hilly. Not one
Okay,
very
that's
lazy.
encouraging.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So tell me why you picked Trevi to run for as the charity.
Oh well, I've kind of been involved with Trevi on and off through various projects over the years. Through my research, my food research, I've done some work with some of the women there, and I was involved in the Sunflower Project, and did some kind of small evaluation activities there. So I got to know their amazing work and some of the women actually there through the work that I've done. I'm just in awe of the work that Trevi do. I think there's such a inspiring charity, um, working with women to support women to rebuild their lives and empower them. It's all about believing and achieving. And I just think, it's kind of feels like a sisterhood. There's a real support for women, and I think, yeah, I've met the women, and I've been really inspired by them and things they've gone through and how they've rebuilt their lives. And I just, I feel I'm running these miles for the women of Trevi. Really, it's a real kind of heartfelt cause, because I very much believe in what Trevi does.
How's your fundraising going so far? I think when I last looked, you were like over £600, which is amazing, and that was just in a few days.
Well, I know. I mean, I set it up on the Friday, and I think by the Sunday, I'd already like got over £500, which was quite a shock, really. So I increased my target. I think I'm on 700, just over 750.
Wow.
So I'm on about 105%. So I upped my target to 750. So, but I'd like to try and push again for a little bit more. I'm amazed. I think it's testimony to the fact that people really believe in Trevi and the important work that they do, because a lot of people, a lot of women actually, who I maybe might not have expected to donate, have donated, saying how much they value the work of Trevi. So I think that's
Wow.
real testimony to the work that you do, which is great.
That's lovely to hear. That's really nice. So what is it that you enjoy most about running? We kind of have covered some of this, but is there anything
Yeah,
else that you'd like to add?
I think we have. I mean, I think it's become, yeah, we talked about earlier, kind of therapy. It's a form of meditation, and I know that people run for many different reasons, but I've found running for me, I can process information.
Mm.
I think about things. You run through things in your head. I come up with new ideas. So quite often when I'm at the planning stage of writing a lecture or something, quite often I find a run helps me to kind of process and run through things in my head, or even writing a song, because I sing as well. So quite often I think it's the rhythm, or the
Yeah.
kind of meditated, the thud of the feet gets a kind of rhythm going in a way. So yeah, and I get fit at the same time, so it kind of feels a bit like a no-brainer. And it's been my complete sanity through lockdown. It really has, because there's nothing stopping you doing it. You don't have to go to the gym, other than, as long as you've got decent shoes, you can kind of run, really. So it's free.
Having said that, though, there must be days when it feels a bit like a slog, and I can remember back into my running days where it just nothing clicked into place. How do you get through those days?
Oh, yeah, I felt a bit like that last week, and that was my worst yet for motivation, because I'd done quite a long run, and it was the longest I'd ever done, and I think it drained me an awful lot more than I was expecting. But I was really busy at work, and it was just, I thought, I really can't be bothered. And in fact, there are times where you just have to say, actually, I'm not going to. I'm just going to have a rest instead. But I am naturally quite motivated. I'm quite bloody minded, I think would probably be the term. So I think, I get up quite early in the morning. That's usually when I run, and I know if I do it and I kind of drag myself out, maybe just say I'm going to have a short one today, I always feel better at the end, even though I might feel heavy one day, and it's a bit of a slog. I always feel, and that's really what drives me, is that I know those endorphins, and I'll feel better for it afterwards.
So, top 3 training tips, what would you say?
Yeah, this was an interesting question to answer, and I've decided that my top tip is try not to take it too seriously. And I think there is a risk that if you take it too seriously, it becomes kind of slightly over obsessive. And I mean, it's easy for it to become obsessive, really. Well, you've got to follow a program, really. But I think it needs to be enjoyable, and I think that's really important. And that's with the person I'm running with. We've said, let's do it, let's do what we can, but let's have a bit of a laugh. So it's, and we chat the whole way around, when we can, when we're not puffing up a hill. So that's number one. And I think the second one, even though I've said that, not to take it too seriously, you do. I mean, a marathon's quite a big deal, and I planning for this, I realized that I couldn't really take it lightly, and it's quite a big step up from a half marathon. So you need some sort of planning, some sort of program, that's based on your initial level of fitness, really. So, and I was very lucky to have a friend that helped me with that and came up with a program that we would share, that not necessarily word for word, but that we would share between us, and we've done pretty well, pretty much stuck to that. And then my final tip, which I think is the most important and probably the hardest, is that making sure that you rest in between those longer those sessions, because it's very easy to think, oh, I really feel I want to go out for a run, and it's probably not the right thing to do. So making sure, especially after the long runs, that you're so just making sure that you remember to rest, and sticking to that, and not being tempted to go out when you're on a rest day.
So is there anything else that you do to look after your body whilst you're in training? I mean, what do you do about nutrition? What's important?
Yeah, well, I mean, this has been really interesting for me, actually, because I am a nutritionist myself, but I'm not a sports nutritionist that's not my speciality. So, and I've kind of discovered firsthand the importance of good nutrition, because when I did my half marathon, I didn't really think about it that much. I tended to run round and guzzle jelly babies and not really give it much of a second thought. But I think what I've realised is that nutrition is so important, especially for these longer runs. Previously, I used to just always go out for a run in the morning on an empty stomach. But when you're doing longer runs, you need to fuel yourself. It's like a machine. You need to fuel yourself. So finding the time to fit that in, and getting up early enough so that you're not feeling, you're having heartburn or feeling sick with I mean, you don't eat a lot, but enough of the right thing to fuel that machine. So I have learned to get up early and have a bit of a breakfast before. The official nutritional advice is that you need, for every hour of those long runs, you're supposed to have 60 grams of carbohydrate. Now, that maybe isn't very meaningful to people. It's a lot, though. So if you're trying to get 60 grams of carbohydrate in by food, it's a lot. So
what does 60 grams look like in terms of food? Like, what would that be?
Well, 60 grams
of carbohydrates.
We're looking at, 4 grams is roughly a teaspoon of sugar, really. So
okay,
if you kind of do the maths of that. So, it's probably all the things that you're telling people not to eat in terms of sugar. Things like, that's why jelly babies are so good, because they're easy, it's readily
instant
absorbable glucose, really. And what your body needs is, as you're running, your stores are used up. So that's immediately kind of replenishing your stores of glucose because what happens to your body when you're doing long exercise is, rather than eat the fat, start eating the muscle if you're not using the right energy source. So that glucose is the readily available energy source that needs to be replenished. Otherwise, your body will go into other metabolic processes which aren't very good. If you think about, like, a can of Coke, for example, that's the equivalent. That's probably about 35 grams.
Wow.
And it's usually about 9 spoonfuls of sugar, roughly. So in fact, that's an indicator. Lucozade, so it's a lot.
It's a lot.
And I was quite shocked by that. Now, I think what the worry is here is that I think there's always got to be a balance and a fine line, because I think there's always that thing that, oh, well, I'm running, I can just eat what I want. And there is an element of that, because I think recovery is really important as well, because when you've been, especially for the longer runs, I've found I'm just hungry for about 3 days afterwards. And they say, the experts say, that you shouldn't be hungry if you're fueling yourself well enough, but that I'm not at that. I'm not quite at that level. I'm just a bit of a novice, really. But things like, making sure you're replenishing what's been used. So the post-run recovery, you need to be including things like protein and starchy carbohydrates, and lots of nuts and seeds and pulses and those sorts of things. And that's another thing. So, fluids. I'm now carrying, water with me, and taking regular sips of water. And some people use kind of hydro kind of tablets to replace electrolytes. I occasionally do that at the end of a long run if I feel I need to, but you could get a bit carried away with all the stuff that's available, really. And but I've found it's had quite an incredible response for me, because I've never used them before, but I thought I was getting really, really tired in this long run, and I had an energy gel, and I thought, gosh, it was like having fresh legs almost. I'm doing yoga as well, so, and that's something I've started since I've more recently. I just think stretching, at my age, I am feeling stiff occasionally. In fact, the biggest effect for me is sitting down at the screen all the
Mm.
time. It's really hard.
Yeah.
So when I'm not running, when I'm not doing on a running day, I tend to do a nice yoga stretch class, and that's just amazing because you're stretching all those muscles that you're using. So it's quite a nice, and it's relaxing, good for the mental well-being, and just that kind of down non-physical but present, I think,
Yeah,
which is really important as well.
it's good. So what would you say, as our final question, what would you say to anyone that's looking to getting into running? What would you say in terms of how to get
Well,
started?
I think everyone can run, and I've just recently, somebody, in fact, the great friend of mine that I'm running with at the moment bought me a fantastic book for my birthday, and it's by Lisa Jackson. It's called Your Pace or Mine. And it's all, I mean, she's done ultras, she's done all sorts of things, but she was never a runner. She was always a non-runner at school and at the at gym classes, and then when she was 30, she did the Couch to 5K, which I think is a fantastic. And she's just, but she's the kind of person that she's not doing it to get a brilliant time. She's doing it for the kind of camaraderie, the fun. So she kind of picks up all the waifs and strays at the back who are kind of really struggling, and gives them encouraging words, and so it's incredible stories she's written about all her different experiences of different marathons. So I think anybody can do it. And if you've never run before, I think the Couch to 5K is brilliant. I know so many people who have done it and have really, kind of invigorated their passion for it. But when I did my first half marathon, which was in 2003 in Nottingham, it was the hardest thing I'd ever done. I'd never run anything more than 5 or 6 miles at that point. But and I would never have dreamt that I could ever do a marathon back then. But then I did another two half marathons,
Wow.
and I did a triathlon as well, which was a bit mad.
Wow.
And I did a trail run. So I've kind of built it up slowly, and I think turning 50 was a big catalyst for me, and I thought, right, okay, and Helen, my running buddy, said, "Oh, how about it?" And I thought, well, okay, now's the time, and it is the time because I'm putting in the effort, and but it's a big step. So I think anybody can do it, but at their own pace and at their own level. And I think it's, I'm doing a marathon, which sounds amazing to some people, but to others who run 250 miles over a weekend, it's probably nothing. It's all relative.
It sounds
Um,
amazing to me.
yeah. Well, thank you.
Oh no, it's really good. Thank you so much for speaking to me today. It's been really great to listen to you, and it's quite inspiring actually. It makes me want to get back into it all again. So yeah,
Oh, well,
yeah,
I
thank
mean,
you.
yeah, I mean, I think if if it's inspiring, then that's great. I mean, I think it's a boost to me, and mental health wise, it's been a massive help, and it will continue to be.